I'll never forget the way he looked at me. This happened back in 2012. It was my second semester of college, and this was just one of those days I just really didn't want to go to class, but still wanted to be productive. So instead, I skipped class that day to go to the Barnes & Noble at my local town center. Well, the town center was always busy with all kinds of shoppers. It was a weekday, so a little less busier than we'd see on a weekend. I was looking forward to a quiet morning sitting in the B&N Starbucks cafe with a cozy peppermint mocha and bacon Gouda sandwich whilst working on an art project on my laptop that was due for class. I couldn't find parking outside of the bookstore, nor by the shops nearby, so I had to park my car in the lot that's behind all the shops. It's a big lot with about 5 rows of cars, so I managed to find a spot. I grabbed my laptop bag, lock up the car, and head to B&N, go to the cafe to get my order, and then find a spot to sit after I get my drink and breakfast. The first hour went by completely undisturbed. Then a guy sits at the table across from me. I'm always hyper aware of my surroundings, so without looking, I could tell this person wasn't sitting with a book or with food or a drink, and he didn't pull out a laptop or even pull out his phone. He just sat there. I never looked directly at him, only using my peripheral vision to notice these details. Even so, I ignored him at first, deciding maybe he's waiting for someone or even waiting on an order, so I continued my work. Well, this guy still didn't move and no one joined him. No order came. He didn't start reading a book, or his phone, or messing with a laptop. He just sat there at the table across from me with his hands on the table. I get the sneaking suspicion that I'm being watched. You know that creeping feeling you get that crawls up your spine? I felt like it had to be him, because he's facing me. But why would he be looking at me? I don't want to look up and make eye contact with him, or give him any idea that I want to engage with him, but I still want to make sure he is the one who's looking at me. So rather than look up towards him, I look past his shoulder, towards the front doors of the shop, once again, using my peripheral vision to see him more clearly. And he's not just looking at me, he's staring at me. This isn't a normal stare either. There was nothing casual about it. It looked hyper-focused and intent, but a bit glassy. The kind of look that your cat might have when looking at a bird or squirrel outside. Predatory. Alarms went off in my head, but I tried to ignore him and went back to what I was doing. This guy continues to just stare at me. He never says anything. He never tries to get my attention or ask for it. He just stares at me. My palms were starting to sweat, and I just couldn't concentrate on my work anymore. I wanted to get out of there, get as far away as possible from him. But I know I can't just get up and walk out the door, into a fairly remote parking lot where he could hide behind cars. I needed to ditch this guy. I needed to break away from his field of vision. I also needed to assess just how much in danger I really was, so I shut down my laptop and slid it into my backpack. The guy continues not to move across from me. I zip up my backpack and pull it onto my shoulder as I get up casual as possible and head for the restrooms, but I don't go into the restrooms. Turn in the book aisle beside the restrooms at the last minute and duck and weave behind a few others. I look behind me and I spot the guy at the end of the aisle, and when he saw me look back, he staggered and quickly ducked behind another aisle. That's how I knew for sure I was being stalked. Now, in hindsight, it might have been safer for me to loudly call him out and drag everyone's attention to him in the store. Looking back, maybe it's what I should have done, but I was young and I was scared and really just wanted to get the hell away from this guy. Besides, if he left, how am I to know he wouldn't be waiting for me somewhere outside? So I spent a few minutes moving through the aisles of the store, sometimes very quickly just to make sure I lost him. Then I left the store with my keys in my palm, with them sticking out between my fingers, just in case I end up needing to defend myself, and moved quickly to my car in the parking lot. As soon as I was in my car, I locked the doors and pulled out before heading straight home. I was just so relieved that I escaped this guy. I'll never forget the way his eyes looked though. There was just something primal and inhuman about it. I've never seen anyone look like that, and I hope I never do again. Oh, just a little bonus. When I told my boyfriend at the time about the whole thing, he told me, "That's what you get for going anywhere by yourself without me. Why didn't you even tell me you were going to the bookstore today?" But this boyfriend, now ex, also made a fuss about me wearing certain clothes around his friends and has major jealousy and control issues, so not a shock to me currently. But at the time, I was shocked he wasn't just relieved I was okay, and just told me it was my fault for being stupid. Exes are exes for a reason though. It took years before I felt enough confidence to go anywhere by myself again. Up until age 30, I only ever went out with a significant other, friends, or family, but I do go out by myself on occasion. Sometimes you just want to do something nobody else you know is interested in, and you can't let fear of what might happen stop you. Even so, I never leave the house without some form of self-defense on me, and I always try to park close or in a populated area when I go out alone. Stay vigilant. I haven't run into really any other issues since. Still won't forget those eyes though. Monsters are real. Lighter ghost in the rain visited me. Back in the spring of 1999, in Beloit, Wisconsin, my mother and I were living with a family friend near 6th Street, not far from where my dad worked at Beloit Body Fender. It was a small house in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where sounds carried at night and everything felt closer when it was dark. One evening, my cousin Crystal was watching me and a few other kids who had come over. We were crowded into the living room, toys scattered across the floor, the TV glowing softly in the background. I was only 5 or 6 years old. Outside, the rain was coming down hard, pounding the ground and tapping against the windows, drowning out everything else. There was a window right next to the TV, facing the side of the house. It was pitch black outside, so dark you couldn't see anything beyond the glass. No streetlights, no movement, just rain and darkness. For some reason, I felt the urge to look out the window. The moment I did, a lighter flicked on. Just for a second, a sharp, sudden flame in the darkness. No hand, no face, no body, just a brief glow of fire, floating where nothing should have been. The air felt like it dropped 10 degrees. My chest tightened, and I jumped onto the couch without even thinking. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. When my cousin asked what was wrong, all I could say was that someone was outside. She went to the window and looked out, then laughed it off and said there was nothing there. I didn't look again. I couldn't. But I knew what I had seen. There was no shadow, no shape, nothing that made sense. Just that lighter lighting in the rain, too close to the window, too deliberate. To this day, I don't know what it was. Maybe someone was outside messing with us. Or maybe it was something else entirely, something watching from the dark, letting me know it was there. Came across an incredibly creepy family a while back. Okay, I never really post anything on Reddit, mostly just reading. So please excuse me if I do or say anything that isn't common courtesy here. In around 2018 or 2019, I, a 25-year-old female, at the time I was 18 or 19, was living in Nebraska where I grew up. I lived in the largest city in Nebraska, but it was still essentially surrounded by corn and wheat fields. The city was expanding, so rich people started building huge houses with giant properties on the edge of town as things proceeded to grow. All of that being said, I had a good friend whose parents' house was one of those big ones right on the blurring line between the fields and the city. My friends and I were constantly hanging out at his place because it was fun. They had tons of property to ride four-wheelers on, a hot tub, a huge living room for us to watch sports, and have reality TV binge sessions, etc. Plus, his parents were super cool, and we could drink out there as long as we stayed at the house. It was tons of fun even though I was, and am, quite scared of the dark, so I would just not go outside after a certain time because there was little lighting and the nearest neighbor was about a mile away. I always felt a weird energy driving to and from his place if it was late at night, but never had anything happen until one night. The drive out there was a long winding two-way road that had thick trees on both sides, and you passed one of the city's largest cemeteries on the way. Barely any lighting, of course, besides the street lamps every once in a while, and very little traffic. It's all inherently a bit creepy, and I'll admit to having sped through this section of road many times to get through it as quickly as possible. This specific night was perfect spring weather, so I was driving with my windows down listening to music, and it was around 10 p.m. I was coming around one of the curves in the road when I had to essentially slam my brakes on. Right in front of me, in the middle of the road, maybe 50 yards away, was what looked like a family. Again, picture a completely pitch black road with thick forest on both sides and only my headlights to show what's in front of me. There was a family of 3 or 4. A tall, slim woman, an average height and weight man, a child, short hair but couldn't tell the gender based on the clothing and couldn't see their face, maybe around 8 years old, and the mother was pushing a fucking stroller. Their clothes looked normal, not tattered but not nice. They also were not carrying any kind of light source, meaning before I arrived behind them in my car, they had been walking in the pitch black. They were all facing away from me, walking completely silent in the middle of the street, the same direction I was heading. I had turned my music down to hear if they were speaking or had their own music playing, but they didn't. The hairs on my arms immediately stood up. I came to a stop in the road behind them, obviously, and just sat there for a moment to let them move. They seemed to be completely unaffected by me and didn't even turn their heads slightly, nor did they attempt to move out of my way. I literally thought I was going insane, or that I was dreaming. It was so surreal. Before I had time to fully process and register what I was seeing and how truly strange it was, they all, at the same time, stopped walking and very slowly turned to face my car. This scared the absolute shit out of me. I honestly didn't even give myself enough time to look at their faces as they turned. I immediately threw my car in reverse and sent it backwards for probably a full 20 seconds before flipping a U-turn, nearly running myself off the road and booking it the other direction. The only thing I remember noticing is that the stroller looked to be completely empty. This was the part that sticks in my mind the most. I've never felt terror like that in my life. I checked my rearview mirror probably 1,000 times before getting to a main road, and never saw a glimpse of them. In fact, I never saw a glimpse of them ever again. I tried asking my friend and his family about it, only to essentially feel like I was insane because of the way they looked at me. Every time I tell this story, I get one of three reactions. They immediately think I'm fucking cuckoo, think I'm lying, or have had something sort of similar happen to them. I really don't care if no one believes me, honestly. It was, and still is, the creepiest thing to ever happen to me. I think about it all the time. It was either some weird-ass family trying to scare the shit out of someone, a distraction for an attempted robbery or assault, or it was something more sinister. I'm going to tell myself for probably the rest of my life that it was the first option.